Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial I will be discussing about how we can write a procedure and what it's all the details. So it will be very interesting to know each and every details of the procedure. And so I will be discussing mainly how to create a procedure, and also I will show all the details of this procedure, and also I will show you what are the drop options of procedure. So drop options, so how to drop a procedure and with its various options. So procedure are called the logic container of SQL script, like the user defined functions. So procedure and user defined functions are the two logic container in SQL script. And as you might know that there are significant changes in between SQL and script. So the main changes are that in script you can parameterize and reuse the calculation and transformation described in one procedure in other procedure, and which is not possible in SQL. And also you can use the scalar variable and imperative languages features if required. And so we will go into the content now, how to create a procedure. And as I have written already, the one standard uh, uh, description how we can define a procedure. So here we can see that we can this is the standard syntax by which you can write a procedure. So create procedure, then procedure name, then parameter clause. I will describe everything so that you can understand that. And then language, SQL security mode, default schema, and reads SQL data with encryption as begin sequential execution and procedure body. So let me start with each and everything. So first is a procedure name. So first, how would you define the this is called the identifier. So first you have to give one schema, because every procedure is under one schema. So your procedure name, your procedure name should contain your schema name, and then any identifier, any name, like this should be the name, proc name. So this is how you need to define your procedure name. And now if we come to the parameter clause, which is very important. So in this parameter clause, so you should define the in out variable. So in and out variable. So let me tell you what is this. So every procedure should have the in out parameter. So if you by default, if you do not define any parameter, so in that case it will by default it will work as in parameter. So always you need to define one in parameter, and then you have to provide the variable name. Suppose you are using a variable called country, and then you should provide the character. I mean, what is the type of this character? It's suppose char. So and then you can define the number of this character. So in this way we should define similar to that. We can define out, and we can provide any output output. So whatever output you want to get here, so you would provide this value of this type, so that you can write. And also there's another parameter that's called in out together. So you have three options in this clause: in, out, and in out. In for input, so whatever the inputs you are giving into the procedure, you should write in input, and whatever the output, whatever the values, whatever the, or maybe the type you are getting, so you should write in output. And in out, so whatever the fields you give in out, so those fields can be used for input as well as for output of this procedure. And so these are the type which is the SQL primitive type, but also you can use table type in the SQL procedure. How can you use the table type? So I have already wrote one syntax. Yeah, so how can you write table type? Suppose I think it will be better if I explain you in this procedure format. So this is the one simple procedure format I wrote. So here you can write in, and suppose country and care, like this you should define. And then you can define out, whatever output field you want. Suppose pin code, like int. So this is the way you should define here. And how can you define the table type here? Suppose you are having you are going to use a table type, so where you have multiple fields in one table. So similar that you can use in, then you should write the it's called the type, and then you can write the whatever is the table name. You should write the table name there, and in that way, suppose your table, this is table name, and then you should write whatever the values you are using in this table, like country you are using, then you should provide its character and so on. And suppose you're using district, and like that. So in this way you can use the table type also in the store procedure as input or output. And now we will come to this. Once we have done this parameter clause, so we have talked about program procedure name, then parameter clause. So whatever I talked about now, this is all parameter clause. So now I will discuss about what is language security. So by default in SQL script, it should be SQL script, like I have given the example here. Language is SQL script. So you should give this so that the program, the schema can understand that it is the type of SQL script. So now we will be going into the next part, like what is the so you can also give the mode, like what mode this is, the security mode. SQL security, like I have given here, invoker. So you have two options in the SQL security. Yeah, that's very important to know that in the store procedure, like you have definer and invoker. So you can use either of those in the. So what does this definer means? Definer indicates that the execution of the procedure is performed with the privileges of the definer of the procedure. Definer means who created the procedure or who wrote the procedure. It is the creator. And invoker means it is the user and who uses the other user. So in this, if you write invoker, then this indicates that the execution of the procedure is performed with the privileges of the invoker, means who calls the procedure. So suppose if somebody else has created the if they provide definer in the procedure, means, and if somebody else run the procedure, then it will take the privileges of the definer. But if you write invoker, means it will not, it just checks your privileges, what are the privileges are defined under your schema. So that's the small difference between definer and invoker, and what you have to write under here. SQL security and mode. Like I have given an example here, SQL security invoker. And if you do not mention this part, invoker or this the definer, then the system will take automatically as definer. So this is a good thing what you should know that. And there's also default schema. So default schema that here you can mention some schema name. So this is only used, this specifies the schema for unqualified objects in the procedure body. If nothing is selected, if you do not define any default schema, then the current schema of this procedure will be used. And then we are going for the next part, that is reads SQL data. So what does it mean? It means that it actually marks the procedure as being read-only. So in this, this means that the procedure does not contain any DDL or DML statements, like any deletion or any kind of DML functions. So in this, it only allows the read-only procedures. So that's why it is very important to mention that read-only data. And then we have the option called as begin, then sequential execution. So it is important to provide the word sequential execution. Like here in the example, I have not provided, but it is important to provide this because if you, it works as it forces the procedure to read one by one. So there's no parallelly work or no parallelism is possible. So it works one by one if you provide this one. So this is, and then you have to write the body. Then here you have to write, once you do that, like after that you have to write the body part. So here you should write the logic of the procedure, and then you have to end, you have to write end at the end. So this is all about the procedure, and then I will show you a small example of drop. How, suppose you have created a procedure and how can you delete this, you want to drop the procedure. And also it has few options like cascade and restrict. So let me describe those. Suppose you want to drop a procedure. So you have created a procedure, like suppose I'm giving a name, like it is name as like TT years. So TT years is your procedure name. So how can you drop this? So then you have to write drop statement, just like drop, drop, then procedure and your procedure name. So like TT years. So in this way you can easily drop the procedure, but there's a few options are there, like here you can use drop options. Drop options. So what are the options? There are two options available in drop option. One is cascade and the other one is restrict. Yeah. So what does that mean? If you do not define, first of all, if you do not define any drop options, then it just works as non-cascaded drop. So what does it mean? It means that it will only drop the specified procedure. It will only delete the specified procedure, but it will not. But the dependent objects of the procedure will be invalidated but not dropped. The dependent procedure, suppose if you are using this procedure in some other procedure, then that procedure will be invalidated but not deleted. And so, and if you use cascade, the invalidated objects can be revalidated when an object that uses the same schema and object name is created. It means that, so if you use that cascade, suppose if you write here cascade, And so what does it mean? So in this way, so whatever this procedure will be dropped, but the invalidated objects can be revalidated again once you create the same procedure again with the same name. And on the other way, if you create the restrict, if you write restrict, what it does, so it will this parameter drops the procedure only when the dependent objects do not exist. So if you drop this option, and then it means that if you if the dependent objects are available in the system and you are trying to delete the procedure with this function, with this drop options, then it will not be deleted, it will show an error. First you need to delete your dependent objects, then you have to delete this procedure. So dependent objects means that where you are using this procedure. So if you're calling this procedure tters in some other procedure, so you have to delete that procedure first, then you can drop this procedure utilizing this drop option. So that's all about this video. I hope you have understood well on that. So what we have discussed, let me just go through very fast what we have talked. So we have talked about the procedure, how we can create a procedure and its basic functions like procedure name and its clause like in out and in out parameter, and we can also use table type here as explained. And also you can use the sequential, and that's very important. You should give the SQL security mode like invoke, invoker or definer. So those are very important as well. And then we have talked about the drop procedure. There are two drop procedure, cascade and restrict. So thank you for listening to the video. Please watch my other videos, those are very interesting, and have a nice day.